All right. Today is our first live stream show that we're doing, at least after Liberation Day. For those of you who were out in Spokane last night and yesterday for the Inauguration Liberation Day celebration, I know there were a couple hundred of you out there. Thank you for having me come out there and speak to Northwest Grassroots and all the other people that were at that event. There were a lot of good groups there. A lot of people had a chance to talk about the inauguration, and really it was it's always good just to meet a bunch of activists, many people who I've known for years and hadn't seen in quite a while. So it was just good to be out there, and thanks for allowing me to come up there and speak. And it was good. Got a couple people signed up for some more training classes that I think we'll try to be organizing out in the Spokane area before too long, and helping you become hopefully a little bit more effective activists. This is an Ask Me Anything video, and obviously you can do that. One thing I wanted to, and I'll do my best to answer it, just kind of note down below, try to use the We the Govern so that I can actually better see the questions that you're, or that anybody else who's seeing this video can actually see the questions, and they'll know what I'm trying to answer, and it doesn't mean I'll stay on track and stay true to form, but I'll try to do my best, and it just makes it a little bit easier. Sometimes I get a lot of people asking questions all at once. What happens is it's with all the commentary back and forth, it's just easy to lose track of the questions. So I do my best to try to keep up with it, but that's one thing I just want to point that out down below. So with that being said, it is an Ask Me Anything video. I will jump into this as best I can. There has been a blizzard, which is exactly the way you need to do it if you're going to come in the new administration. A blizzard of mostly good news, actually. Lots of phenomenal good things that Trump is doing, and the Trump administration as they kind of step into place and take over after the dementia-ridden just malaise of the Biden administration. So there's a lot of opportunities there. I produced a video today about Liberation Day, and then what to do if you are located behind enemy lines like we are in Washington State, where freedom and liberty is under continuous assault by the political establishment that we have. But you, me, and about 1.7 million other people, based on voting, which probably means it's closer to about 3 million people, are definitely living behind enemy lines, and we want to push back against those who want to take away our freedom. And my guess is there's a lot more than just that here in Washington State, particularly as they get a chance to actually look at the contrast between a conservative, liberty-oriented government approach to things and what they do in LA, which is when progressives go wild, they just decide to set up a sort of circumstances that's so incompetent, so egregious that they can pretty much destroy anything if they want to. And they apparently wanted to in LA, so that was pretty amazing. But there's all kinds of interesting things going on right now in our country. There's a phenomenal set of moves that are being made in Washington, D.C. right now. Lots of them phenomenally conservative, excellent decisions. I may not necessarily always agree with everything, but on the whole, these are really good things that are being done. I love the pardoning of the J6ers. I loved the getting out of the World Health Organization, the Paris Accords, pulling the security clearances for obviously corrupt bureaucrats who have spent their life in and out of government just trying to destroy the future for the rest of us. So there's some really, really good opportunities and I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface. I'm hardly going anywhere. And the great thing is it's just like an avalanche of stuff that's going on, which is the only way you can do this when you have such an ingrained sort of established big government effort to stop you. And we really are at a crisis in our country where really the objective is to avoid getting into a world war unless we're totally forced to, but let's try to avoid that. It would be nice to restore some level of sanity when it comes to our foreign policy approach to things. We don't need to be the world's policeman, and we don't need to waste our military resources on stupid activities or adventures. At the same time, our economy is at risk with the debt and the deficit and the value of the dollar and inflation and all these other things, all of which it looks like we have some adults in the room who are at least aware of these issues, and they have a great challenge in front of them to address most of them. It's not going to be easy, especially when there clearly are people in the big government side of the equation that just want things to get worse. So we're really approaching an interesting situation. So Real quick, I try to start out the videos just reminding people of different places that I will be. If you want to come see me in person, I do a lot of public speaking engagements and training sessions as well for activists. And I didn't bring anything written down with me, but I know that on March 29th, I'll be speaking at the Clark County Lincoln Day Dinner. I believe it's May 3rd. I'll be speaking at the Kitsap County Lincoln Day Dinner. I don't think I'm emceeing there. I think I'm speaking. And I'm also going to be at the Kitsap County Lincoln Day Dinner in April. I think it's April 12th. I'm also speaking at the Kitsap Women's Republican Club first week in February. And that's just all I can remember off the top of my head. There's probably more than that. I didn't get a chance to look at my calendar before we got in, but those are a couple of events that are on the horizon. If you do want me to come out and speak to your group, or if you're willing to organize a group of people who want to have activism training, just please let me know. You can email me, Glenn with one N at We the Govern. Just make sure you send me an email just detailing as much of the information as we can, and I can have a dialogue back and forth with you. Anywhere in Washington State, no problem. If it's outside of the state, then I have to make a little bit more detailed arrangements with you and getting out there. But we have a lot of work to do in our state, and that's why I produce this video about just what it's like to be on Liberation Day, but behind enemy lines, so how to restore some of those freedoms. The other thing I was going to mention is I did post, and I did a quick video, just summary of this, but I did post a pretty long article on my website. Haven't been writing as much lately, but I do have a very long article there that, and I didn't mean for it to be so long, but as it was getting laid out, it just ended up being a really long article. Just about the convention of states, some of the potential concerns that I have, and scenarios that I think when actually dealing with the left in a scenario like that, what we would have to be very concerned about. And my recommendation that we use the amendment process to get some great ideas through to help restore liberty and freedom as far as amendments to the Constitution go, but rather than using the risky path of the Convention of States, and I outline what my concerns are there. And I'll try to remember to link that article in this live stream as well. I'll try to put that down below. But for those of you who are interested, you can go to We the Govern and you can see that article. It's a very long one. Additionally, today I launched my first experiment with country music, Bob Ferguson song. I'm eager to hear your feedback. I just launched it about an hour and a half ago or so. So feel free to take a look at that, share it widely, and I'm sure Bob Ferguson's going to be super happy that I put that out. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into some of your questions. You are throwing a lot of them at me already, so let's get down and get to them. So the first question here, and I'm going to have to get back up to this here so I can actually read it here. Today, Trump talked about a water pipeline that comes from up here being the Pacific Northwest. It ends in California, and what is he talking about? And did somebody sell California our water? And actually, selling water has been something the Pacific Northwest has been doing for a long time. Now that you ask this question, I don't have the specific answer as to exactly where they're pulling that water from. But this has actually been a source of revenue, and we've been aware of it as a source of revenue in the Pacific Northwest for a long time, because unlike most of the country, we actually get a massive amount of water that is dumping and flowing here the majority of the time. Obviously, we have dry summers a little bit, but our reservoirs are phenomenal. Our snowpack is usually pretty impressive, especially when you get in the North Cascades area, and but all throughout the Cascades, and there is a reason why we have the Columbia River here, among other river systems. There is a lot of extra water that we just flow out into the Pacific, and we do have excess water that we can sell to California or Nevada or wherever you can run a pipeline that makes economic sense. California is one of those places where they do need extra water, and if we can sell it to them, just like we do sell electricity, I think it goes all the way down into Northern California still from some of the dams, or at least it's networked, or the electrical grid is kind of tied in through Bonneville Power Administration that way. So that's not unusual. We've been doing that for a long time, and there's a potential to do a lot more than what we've done, but I believe that those options have been resisted for a long time. And I don't know if it's 100% Washington or Washington and Oregon, but it's been going on for a while. Yes, Frederick, liberals have indeed gone wild, and I'm sure they're not too happy with some of the freedom-oriented projects that seem to be getting launched very quickly out here. 4 more beautiful years. Yeah, it is. But this is really when the work begins. I think the greatest risk that we have right now, if you care about liberty and freedom and you support the stated Trump administration, a lot of very conservative, excellent ideas on downsizing government and improving the financial picture for our state and our country. If you support that, and I do, the real work begins now, because it's not like you're just going to be able to get what you want. That's not how it works. It's not how it works in a republic. There's a lot of effort that needs to go into place right now to ensure that we get legislation through, to ensure that we get the budget cuts that we desperately need at the federal level, to be sure that we do the downsizing that's also desperately needed at the federal level, that the reorganization structures that need to be done, probably, it looks to me like some of the military reorganization, some of the change in foreign policy, this mass distribution, malinvestment of U.S. dollars that just gets distributed all over the world, doing stupid things and oftentimes wasteful things. Changing all that isn't going to be easy. There's going to be massive fights, a lot of battles that are going on. We've barely begun. What's good is to hit the ground running, which it does appear that the Trump administration's done. So it's kind of a big deal. And that being said, we do live behind enemy lines in Washington State. We do have a public administration here, starting with the governor and the AG, Nick Brown, and probably pretty much everybody that has a D next to their name, who exists mostly to make life more miserable for you and I, certainly more expensive, certainly more dangerous, and to ensure the grant grifters and the parasites that surround government get their full share at your expense. We're going to have some fights going on here. We got a lot of things that we have to change, but it matters a lot to have that fight, and it's worthwhile to have it, because if we can address it and downsize it and stop it and change the direction in our state, then frankly, we protect states like Idaho and Wyoming and South Dakota and North Dakota and conservative states that are otherwise, despite the fact that they're Republican in name, they're oftentimes sleepwalking towards the same destination, just using different excuses or justifications to get there. If we can downsize it here, we really save some of those states the future fights that they're going to have otherwise. And it's one of the reasons why, going back to my Convention of States article, and you read it there later on, very conservative people who come from very conservative states have zero idea or no experience, certainly, in fighting the left. They don't know the significant organizational structures that exist, the tactics and the methodology that they can use to manipulate the processes, and the endless budget and abusive sort of programs they'll operate. And it's one of the reasons why I think the Convention of States is a risky thing. But you can read the article, tell me what you think. Let's get down. I see people from Puyallup and Bonnie Lake. Thank you guys for checking in. Brian Smith. So can we use the domestic extremism and massive violence task force hotline if Governor Bob offends me? You might as well. It's been foolishly and bizarrely set up in our state. It's been Bob Ferguson's pet project. Silencing his political opposition is one of his highest priorities in life. And obviously, you might as well use it. Of course, it's not just Bob Ferguson that offends us. It's almost every one of these crazies that are trying to destroy the cities in our state. Lisa Brown offends me out in Spokane as she's trying to destroy Spokane as quick as she possibly can bribe her way to the top. And the weird structures that they set out there to basically create a perfect incubator for drug cartels, just like they do in Seattle and Tacoma and Olympia and Bellingham, Vancouver, to create these perfect incubators for drug cartels to distribute their product and to support human fencing operations, human trafficking operations, and property fencing and drug, crime and all the other stuff that goes along with widespread distribution of hard drugs like that. And I did a video years ago. If the city of Seattle was run by drug cartels, would it be any different? So there's a phenomenal level of work that needs to be done quickly, as quickly as we can, because every bit that we can do now to change direction, reduce the malinvestment, the loss of funds, the destruction and debt that we dump on future generations, the malinvestment now that takes away from actually a useful projects that probably do need investment in them, like repairing some of our roads and bridges in the state, and stopping the self-immolation of the education system. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have a lot of work to do. And even though Washington State will feel like we're behind enemy lines sometimes, there's still a lot of opportunities of things we can do here. Thunderstrikers, question here. Hi, Glenn, I'm back. What are your thoughts on last week's TikTok got banned? Do you think Trump will win to save TikTok? What you're really looking at there is with TikTok, it was shut down for 12 hours, right? It kind of comes back. The funny thing was TikTok putting up this thing about thanks to Donald Trump. I mean, it's just very funny to me. But really what they're trying to do is get a U.S. buyer for it. I'm still not convinced that TikTok won't function in a very negative way, but under a U.S. buyer, maybe there's some argument that you could have some control and reduce the public security and public safety issues that people do have with that operation. Let's look at this. Pattern recognition expert. Trump's executive order puts a pause on federal funding for sanctuary states. How does that affect us? Well, we are a sanctuary state, and all federal funding to us would be technically paused. What I don't know on the details of what that executive order says is what type of federal funding, because frankly, we get federal funding in the forest. We get federal funding in agriculture. We get federal funding through DSHS with most of the kind of welfare programs, WIC. There's 9% of the federal or of the state's education budget roughly comes from federal funding. And so all of that funding, not to mention Department of Transportation, which is a good chunk of the transportation budget, all of that funding, if it's truly paused, then that does dry up the spigot in a couple of these projects. But a lot of times they've already received money, so I don't know that you would necessarily see a huge change, with this possible exception of maybe some of the welfare payment type programs. At that point, it just becomes a chicken and a battle, right? Who's going to turn off first? I don't know what the long-term plans are, the strategic plans in cutting off federal funding to sanctuary states. Got to remember, it's not just the state. You're also going to have counties and cities within the state that have decided unwisely to go down this ridiculous path of sanctuary status. They started doing this years ago, and at this point in time, Washington is one of the bad ones. So cutting this off is not a bad idea. It's like cutting off a drug addict from its product, and perhaps you can induce a little bit of change when you do that. And I'm curious to see how people respond here. And we'll just see. Let me see here. Thunderstriker got another question here. Should Trump propose a bill or executive order to ban dual citizenship in government positions, and would it gain public support? No, I think that's kind of wasteful. Dual citizenship is mostly, it's a kind of a fairly, it's not a real common thing, but I wouldn't think that that's going to make a difference. Now, listen, it might make a difference in some public top secret sort of positions where you're going to be getting access to information that you may not want to get out there. But there's a lot of people with dual citizenship, and I don't think, number one, I don't think it's that important. But I'm not sure that's going to be making as big a difference as people think. There are probably close to 1 million things that are way more important than that right now, but we'll see how it goes. Let's go down to this one. Pam McGill, we got a question here. Is it true that Washington State's tracking drivers via our cell phones? Well, I doubt Washington State is, but I can tell you the NSA is. And so frankly, so are your cell carriers, so is Google. So is pretty much about 30 or 40 applications that you have on your phone right now, in which case all that information is aggregated and provided and sold to the highest bidder. Technically, they anonymize the cell tracking data, right? But if you ever saw Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules, right? Essentially, what they did is they bought this anonymous cell data, so they couldn't necessarily see specifics, but you could see patterns, and that's valuable for a lot of different reasons in the private sector, determining traffic patterns, determining is that a good location for a store based on the amount of traffic that goes by? What percentage of traffic coming on Cold Creek Parkway are people who live in Renton versus Redmond? They got all kinds of information that you can extract from the anonymous version of that data. So Washington State, they could buy that data just like the hundreds and probably thousands of other companies are buying the data right now. But they view that as probably a metric or a way to measure their pay-per-mile scheme that has been brought up recently as one of their solutions to extract more cash from you and I. But most likely they would probably embed something in your car that makes it a little bit easier to track your vehicle that way. So anyway, let's see. Here, Daniel, you got a question here. Now, this one I may not know the answer to at all, or may not even have a good answer to. What do you know about VPS tax rates? Claiming their levy will not increase the total tax burden for taxpayers. Oh, you're probably talking about the Vancouver Public Schools. Sorry, I didn't catch the abbreviation there. Okay, so here's the argument, and there's two different types. So when you're talking about a levy for a school district, there's essentially two basic structures in local taxpayer-approved, voted upon property tax support for the school district. One's a levy and one's a bond. A bond has a higher threshold under the state constitution where you have to get over 60% of the vote to approve it, and you have to have a minimum participation rate in the voting in the election as well. And they run those in February and then in April normally. February is when they run most of them because it's a surprise, lower voter participation. The union can come out and motivate people to vote, and really they can avoid any kind of opposition to their increase. A bond is usually supposed to only be spent on buildings and infrastructure, and so that's what they mean when they say a bond. A levy, when they're saying that it doesn't increase your tax rates, what happened is they usually run about a 2 or 4 year levy in most school districts. We have 293 school districts in Washington State. Pretty much all of them run a levy at some point in time, and they're on a 2 or 4 year cycle. Most of them are on 4 year cycles now, I believe. So every 4 years, that levy is expiring, and so they have to run a new levy, and they have to justify that new levy. And levy is usually what they call M&O levy, which is a maintenance and operations levy. And so what they're trying to do is say, okay, listen, the taxpayers have approved this levy, and the school district's gotten used to spending this levy money to theoretically assist in improving sports programs and arts programs and other absolutely required education programs that the school district has that a lot of people support and want in the school system. So that's technically then what they do is they try to match the rate in theory with the same rate that already existed so that you don't notice any change in your property tax assessment and the amount that you pay next year. So that's what they mean when they say that. It's a little deceptive because it's a fixed amount of money, and the way the millage rate, which is what they call it, the way that can actually go up and down depending on property valuations. The way they basically determine whether it's fairly distributed has to do with the coefficient of dispersion based on the larger value commercial properties, and you're supposed to be paying the same percentage based on the value of your property, but it gets into a fairly complex formula in how they distribute it. And imagine you have school district levies, park levies, city and county levies. Typically, there's all kinds of things that kind of overlap. It's actually really a complex math program when it comes to and distribution model. And almost impossible to go back and audit effectively, despite the fact that the Department of Revenue pretends like they do that. But it's really difficult to go back and identify failures to follow proper distribution of tax programs. And the school district doesn't care about any of this. All the Vancouver school district's going to want to do is make sure they get their money. So what they don't tell you is that a decent percentage of those funds are actually diverted to cover extra benefits for teachers usually, and it's oftentimes tri-pay. It doesn't, not for baseline pay. The state does cover that with the property taxes that you pay already for that too, but those you can't get out of. The levy, you could defeat the levy and not pay it, right, if you had a campaign against it or you had enough people that decided to oppose it. Here's a little quick, dirty secret about levies and bonds, in particular bonds. Any kind of an opposition campaign that's run in a school district will almost always defeat the bond or the levy. When I was in the school board myself, and I would go to WASDA, they would put on these training sessions where these consultants would come in and to talk about how to help get your levy passed in a local community. But one of the things they mentioned is they any of these consultants have said, listen, with $1,500 and a budget of $1,500 and a little bit of effort, I'd be able to defeat almost any levy out there. And I think they're right. What happens is usually people are surprised by it, or they don't really want to run that levy in opposition. In any given school district, the math I've usually seen in the surveys on this show that probably only about 17 to 20% of the people who live there at the most have children of school age in that district. And so now they're directly, they're going to feel directly impacted by this, right? Johnny's not going to have his baseball team uniforms if this levy doesn't pass, or the robotic club won't have the extra pay to pay that teacher to work overtime to put on the robotics class, or the music class won't have enough money to buy instruments. The art class won't be able to run the ceramics department. The teachers will have to have a cut and try pay, which means we'll have to lay off people. So there's the football program won't have enough money, those kind of things. So all of these things have established support within the school district, but maybe you lump in grandparents and other relatives who'd be willing to support it. You're still only looking at probably around 25%, maybe 30% at most in the community who are directly tied to that school levy and feel like it's something that they really, really want to get or really want to do. A lot of times your teachers don't even live in the school district. So, but nevertheless, that's what exists there. And so if you're running a pro-levy committee, you really want to work that group of people, and you also want to try to get buy-in from other people. But the more people that look at it, if they just had something that said, listen, your property taxes are going to keep skyrocketing and the scores of your students are going to keep shrinking, please give us more money, that's usually not going to be what wins the day in that campaign. So anyway, but sorry, I totally went off in a levy discussion on property tax issues. Sorry, that's what happened. I ran for the assessor once in Thurston County back in 2010, so I went really wonkish on this policy back in the day. And I've looked at it frequently in the past. Thunderstriker, another question here. What are your thoughts on the recent media coverage about Elon Musk's salute? It is a totally overblown and exaggerated fake drama created by fake. Honestly, I mean, at this point in time, it seems like these people are opening themselves up to obvious litigation that they would lose, because everybody would know that's not a Hitler salute. It's a typical leftist media thing. They would have gotten away with this back in the day. Nowadays, I think they just look more and more crazy. It's like the media hasn't caught up to recognizing that there's plenty of other people there with cameras to document what's really going on. So it's it's a stupid event, but that's what's going on. Do you know the numbers on migration from Californians here? Is the fire in LA driving rent and house sales up in Washington? Cristiano, that's a good question. I doubt. We don't need the LA fires to drive up rent and houses here in Washington. We have Democrats that do that for us all the time with incredibly stupid and ridiculous, idiotic policies like the current rent control plan that they want to put out there. Rent control has failed pretty much every single time it's ever been tried in human history. It always results in higher rent. It's an absurd and ridiculous approach to solving the problem, which is why Argentina threw out rent control under Milei when he recently just threw it out for the first time in decades. And then suddenly the rent costs in Argentina collapsed and dropped to a much lower level than they'd been in decades. That's the reality of it. So we're already doing a good job by restraining, by basically making it difficult to be a landlord and very costly. And so if you make it very costly to be a landlord, those costs get passed on to potential renters. But they also do it by restricting the Growth Management Act is a great driver for increasing the cost of living in the Pacific Northwest. So the Growth Management Act helps destroy the future for your children and grandchildren today. And by jacking up those costs and restraining the ability to develop reasonable homes, then that increases the cost as well. I don't know the current numbers on migration from California, but ever since I was a kid, that has been a continuous comment. I mean, there's nobody watching this video. If you live in Washington, you don't know somebody that's moved up here from California. Usually, you know a lot of people that have. Some of them are conservatives trying to escape California. Some of them think they're conservatives from California, and they move up here and they decide to impose the same really poorly thought out policies that helped drive California into the ground today and drove them to leave in the first place. But there is a lot of migration from California to here. There is. However, I don't know that I think the LA fires are too recent, and I don't know that we've had enough people move up here since those LA fires that specifically be driving up rent and house sales necessarily. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen any data on that. Jet Eagle, not a question, but yes, Bob Ferguson is an evil, corrupt person, but we should see. Family Matters, the song is spot on. It should go viral. Thank you. For those of you who don't, I did. It was like my first country song I've ever produced, and it's not really I put it on YouTube, but it's really the song that's playing. I have the lyrics there, but if you like it, feel free to share it out. I tried country this time. I thought it was funny, so let me know what you think. It's all about Bob Ferguson. I'm sure he'll hate it, and so if you guys like it as well, let me know your feedback on that. It launched a little while ago, so it should be there. If you get bored with this live stream, you can cut over to the YouTube channel and watch that video over there, and make sure you share it with others. I think it'll be pretty funny. Nelly, may I suggest you utilize and work with a local channel I found, I Am Free Auditing. He has been making sure government offices here locally are compliant with state requirements on camera. I saw one of his videos. You know what? I don't know. Nelly, I don't know if it was you. Somebody else might have mentioned this, and I get tons of people, and I can't tell the difference between ads and necessarily fake ads or somebody's trying to spam me with different channel ideas. So that stuff it's constantly coming in. So you have to understand all the time that happens over the years. And so this one, I just presumed the first couple times I saw it because it sounded like some kind of a marketing scam. However, I did watch one of this guy's videos, and I loved it, actually. I really enjoyed it. But I haven't really spent a lot of time on the channel, so I appreciate the fact that he's doing some stuff here in Washington. And I thought that he was, I don't think he's based out of Washington. Correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free to throw a comment in here down below. But I didn't think he was based in Washington, but that I know he came to Washington and he did some stuff. I love that kind of activism. I think it's great. The more you do, the better. I think it's very important. And Thunderstriker, nope, never saw that. I didn't watch every little detail of the inauguration the way probably a lot of people did. I try to get summaries of it. It's difficult. I did watch some of the actual speech, some of the other points, but I didn't spend a lot of time digging into all that drama. Part of it was because I was driving out to Spokane. It's a 5.5 hour drive out there from my house, and I drove out there, did this event, and spent 5.5 hours driving back, which, if you can do the basic math, means I get back at super early in the morning, and I had to come on and prep for some of the videos today, so I just didn't do that. Basically watching Exposing the Government. Yep, I know that's what he does, but it's a little bit more specific than that. So that's what I appreciate about it, and so I really enjoyed that work. So I want to see. I'm probably going to see if I can help the guy, depending on how much stuff he's doing up here in Washington. I think it'd be really good. Let me look at this. Next question, guys, is trying to find the actual question here. Somebody says that, oh, by the way, no, never mind. There's a lot of different commentary about Musk in here, and great commentary back and forth, but I don't need to get into that right now. Somebody said that people were stockpiling birth control at Trump's presidency. Is that true? And did he ever actually propose banning access to contraceptives? Yeah, listen, I've been seeing tons. My daughters were showing me these videos recently of all these lefty girls or women melting down and thinking, about stockpiling Plan B or whatever they were doing. And, I don't know how many of them will wake up and realize they've just been totally lied to, but the emotional roller coaster they're put into that's driving them towards it. Listen, if they're becoming preppers and they are stockpiling food and getting prepared to help themselves in case of genuine emergencies, that's great. If you need 100 doses of Plan B in your life, I would really be questioning my life's choices if I were you, and wondering what the heck you're actually doing. But if you're stockpiling up on something you think is going to be, made illegal, which it won't be, then, go for it. A lot of people do that all the time. I'm not going to criticize the left for doing that any more than I would anybody else. Stockpile all you want. It's just silly that they were told that that's what they needed to do and that that's the important thing. And but the videos my daughter were showing me were weird, and I felt really bad for the people who, I'm assuming they're not, faking it and doing it just simply for clicks. But if they're real and that's really what they believe, the delusion and unfortunately just this psychosis they've probably been induced into is pretty bad. Michael Case, thanks for this. One of Trump's presidential actions was to increase the oil production in the U.S. Will the Olympia rats try and keep fuel prices up through new carbon taxes? And the answer to that is they don't have to. They already did. The Climate Commitment Act actually makes future fuel more expensive than it is today. What's good, though, about this reduction is that there's still a baseline reduction that Washington State would benefit from as well. So you're still going to see prices sometimes come down here, despite the increase in the CCA and the already very high state gas taxes that we have here. And but the contrast, most likely, between Washington State and other states is going to become more and more stark. And that's going to be where, but it'll take about a year, I think, before you really see the big difference there. However, it will reduce some of our costs here. And although they'll increase some of it with the scams that the CCA kind of supports, I really think some of the budget decisions and choices right now are going to start leading towards an inevitable reckoning of, just fiscal irresponsibility that Washington State's had. Eventually, it catches up with you. Let's see. Jason Fisher. Hey, Glenn, hope you're well. What's your thoughts on the Washington lawsuits against Trump? Will we see any more, possibly? And have you thought about a soundboard with Sideshow Bob quotes? Oh, I'd love that. You know what? Send me good quotes if you're thinking about it. Just email them to me, because I like that. I could probably integrate some of his funny quotes into this. He has some good quotes, and he's had some good quotes over time. I did my video today that I did do, and I imagine I'll be launching it tomorrow or at the latest the next day. It is, or at least the first one, I did integrate that quote, or I should say I merged a bunch of the quotes remember that one public hearing that Bob Ferguson did down in Seattle during the primary, or actually filing week, where he was just complaining about me. And I remember he used my name 11 times in that, when he was threatening to send his political opponents that had the same name to prison for daring to jump into the race. And I did use that little video clip where it's kind of where I put them all in the same clip. It was kind of funny. I don't know. It's blast from the past, but it's worth sharing. But I definitely like more of Bob Ferguson's quotes out there, and any of those would be great. Let's see. It was live. He was doing Heart to Heart to You. Let's see. Is there trouble in paradise for Big Mike and Obama? Big Mike. I'm not sure who you're referring to with Mike there, but is there trouble in paradise for Obama? And the answer is sort of yes. I mean, I don't know how much trouble there is when you've made tens of millions of dollars and you really don't have to work for a living anymore, which the Obamas are clearly in that position right now. So how much trouble are they really going to have in paradise? Some of their political objectives and goals may be rapidly unraveling around them, but, that's all it is. So anyway, but there's definitely trouble in paradise. I mean, I wouldn't get overly cocky or confident right now. And a lot of people, listen, there's a time to celebrate. I love the fact they called it Liberation Day, but this is a time to celebrate. That's true. But the reality is most of the hard work is in front of us. It's not behind us. And some of the greatest challenges that probably our country's ever faced is going to come up soon. And the Trump administration has its hands full with some serious, genuine challenges that it faces. And their biggest challenges aren't the opposition and the undermining from the bureaucracy. I mean, that's part of it, but it's not the only challenge. There is such a thing as math. It is real, as much as most socialists and Democrats believe that it isn't. The budget and the deficit is a significant reality. And to address them require probably one of two paths. Either you inflate your way out of it and destroy the value of the dollar, and therefore greatly increase the inflation, which is very harmful and destructive to vast swaths of America. The only people that don't suffer in that process as much are those who can hedge out of it because they're so wealthy that they can invest in things that are inflating or staying ahead of that inflation rate process. And there's just a very small percent of the population can truly do something like that. So then your other option is to really cut back. Now, inevitably, when you cut back, especially the way we calculate GDP numbers here, we use, and we shouldn't use government money in the GDP calculation. I've always thought that was a foolish way to do it, because you're essentially double counting money that's being stolen and taken away from productive purposes and put into kind of this parasitical existence that's government. You still have to support things the government funds, the military, maybe bridges, some basic functioning, the justice system, whatever that is. You got to support that at a bare minimum anyway. And it's more like a necessary evil that you just have to support in order to have a functioning society. But most of the money that we grab doesn't help in that way. It's, people get their cuts. It's kicked out into welfare programs of various sorts. Social Security, which is essentially still a welfare program. We can say that we've decided to do this as a society, and that's fine. But the reality is there isn't enough money in the world, and there's enough money being produced to solve it. You're going to have to cut back how much money the feds are spending. And even if you took out all the discretionary funding, even if you were able to streamline a lot of the military spending, even if your interest rates dropped a little bit lower, which is risky right now considering the direction of the economy and the inflation concerns. But even if you did all that, that's not enough. You're going to have to reform some of these entitlement programs. That's not easy, and politically it's tough, and that's a challenge. And at the same time, you also have to avoid getting into a massive war somewhere else around the world. If you get into a big World War type experience, or a major great powers war of some kind, even in a smaller scale, but any significant war like that, you're going to blow up everything. There's nothing good that comes out of that type of a conflict. I understand sometimes you're forced into a situation where conflict's unavoidable, but it'd be better to avoid that if you can. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to monkey wrench America right now in a lot of different ways. You got foreign powers that want to do it. You got groups from the inside of America that probably want to do it for political reasons or ideological reasons of some kind. Big thing that they have to deal with here. No Thunderstriker on this question. Trump will never be able to run for a third term, and I don't think he'd want to either. Now, the question is always, what kind of legacy can you leave so that you have people come in and have a third term that third or fourth even carry on a legacy? It's not that easy. But I'm sure that's those plans, if they're planning ahead at all, should already be in place, where they're trying to lay that foundation plan. I don't really care whose name is at the top, but I do care about the policies and the goals of what they're trying to push forward. All his I Am Free auditing videos seem to be all in Washington. He's always looking for leads. Wink, wink. He caught the governor's office recently praying for you guys. Well, that's great. Nellie, yeah, I'm going to go back and look closer at this. I love this type of work. So I Am Free auditing. I like that type of work. There's something I saw in the video, one of the videos where I didn't totally understand the statute that he was pushing, but it doesn't matter. This is the kind of stuff I encourage and want people to do more of in Washington State. And if you're being effective with it, then that's good. Let's see. Why were there reports of Trump signed executive orders without fully understanding some of them? Because that's just the way the media rolls. They're mostly ignorant anyway. If you think about it, to be a journalist, you don't have to be very intelligent at all. You don't have to. There's intelligence tests or requirement to even understand what you're reporting on. And if you've ever dealt with journalists on stories and sometimes given them even benign, I'm talking simple stories, race stories, like who won the race. I've seen journalists screw up the simplest stories. So journalism isn't easy to do it well, but it's really easy to do it poorly, and it's more commonly done poorly. So that ignorance is pretty common. And to be fair, though, there's a blizzard of sometimes very wonkish changes that the Trump administration's wisely prepared ahead of time and jumped on really quickly. But it's easy to kind of lose sight of the fact that the real hard work is actually going to be the legislation that needs to be made. And that means you're bringing along herding the cats in a limited majority that the Republicans do have in the House and the Senate. And it's not going to be as easy as people think. I think there's going to be a lot of obstacles that suddenly appear there. It won't be just Democrats. It'll be Republicans who are corrupt and have sold their souls in whatever way they have. It'll be other types of divisions that occur to try to stop these things. So anyway, there's a lot of work that has to be done here. Is there any chance of stopping any of these gun bills, or do you think they are a priority to pass this session? The bills are mostly already passed, but sneaking what was taken out. not sure what you're referring to there. I don't know that. I don't think most of the proposed bills this legislative session in Washington State necessarily get through. Part of the reason, too, is there's some Supreme Court cases that are coming up that are sort of going to roll some of them back already. Some of the ones that we already have, I think. You're also just seeing a different political swing that's occurring in our country even after some of these bills have been proposed. So I don't know what really comes down the final pipeline at the end. There's going to be a big shift that occurs every legislative session for the last 100 years in Washington State has actually one priority and only one requirement actually for the legislature in our state, and that is to pass the budget. The budget is the battle more than almost anything else that's going on. Any of these other fights, most of them are actually distractions from the budget. And yet the budget is where very few activists spend any time at all looking, and that's where the big fight is. There's billions and billions of dollars. Everybody's trying to carve up their side of the pie. Now, the Republicans aren't involved in this because the Republicans don't have enough of a representation in Olympia to have much influence on that budget. So they're cut out of the loop, and it's really the Democrats, and it's not even really Democrats so much as it's their political allies, the unions, special interests, nonprofit groups, the grifting operations, the bureaucracies. They are in there fighting like cats and dogs, tooth and nails, stabbing each other in the back because there's not enough money to go around to everybody, which is good. And so we're going to see what comes out of this sausage factory. It's ugly, it's nasty, and it's nothing good about it. But that's the real fight. That's the real battle. It's not out there in the public hearings right now because most of the negotiations are going on right now behind closed doors. And that's going to be where, with the supposed, I'm going to say air quotes, around 10 billion, or is it 17 billion, whatever the shortfall is, that's the big fight that's going on. And hopefully we can cut it even lower. There's a lot of things that need to be cut in Washington State. But inevitably, with somebody like Bob Ferguson, he's not going to make the right choices on what needs to be cut. He's going to try to probably, historically, what Democrats usually do is they cut public safety and they make your life more dangerous so that that'll scare you and you'll feel justified in increasing taxes. They aren't going to cut the budget for esoteric and obscure and useless things, but those things are funding their political supporters, different unions, SEIU, WA, things like that. So anyway, they a lot of work to do there. Let's see. Final question. What measures might be considered if the U.S. were to assist Mexico in combating cartel activities? Would this involve special forces or other strategies? And the answer to that is obviously yes. They've come out and publicly said that. I would anticipate that they probably target a couple of the more obvious drug cartels in Mexico and just simply go out there and take them out with special forces. Maybe they capture some of them too. I don't know what their real approach would be there. The bigger concern is how much they're set up inside our country, which you don't need the military for. Law enforcement's adequate for that, but you're going to have to dig deep into their money laundering operations, their human trafficking programs, and their ties in with the government grant grifting operations, particularly in the states that have these big homeless industrial project, where they basically claim that they're helping the homeless, and they're really just helping drug addicts have a much easier life and access to the product that the drug cartels want to push. Again, I mean, going back to my video I did years ago, what's the difference in Seattle with how they govern versus how the drug cartels will govern? You could probably argue the drug cartels will keep the city cleaner and they would probably be less incompetent. But other than that, really what's different, they tend to push policies that drug cartels would prefer to have. So to what degree the untraceable $1 billion a year so that's disappearing in just the Puget Sound area into these completely unaudited, untracked organizations that all claim and pretend to be helping somebody while they're just obviously destroying the city downtown as all these drug addicts and overdoses are occurring. How much is the drug cartel actually influencing those? That's a good question. I guarantee you nobody at the AG's office has ever bothered to look, and local law enforcement, if they're aware, has probably been told to look the other way. There's a limited amount of work that's been put into this, probably very little at all, and yet there could be some serious changes if the Trump administration comes in with a real serious U.S. District Attorney approach to digging into this and getting the FBI focused on, not on people who are going to school board meetings complaining about boys in their girls' locker room, but instead focusing on the drug cartel's involvement in the grant grifting operations that are going on here. Okay, you were talking about Michelle, and you said Big Mike. Thanks, Jason. That's funny, actually. Brian, have you heard any news or updates about Joe Kent? I haven't, but I believe that he's working, or that he's going to be part of the Trump administration. I'm speaking a little bit off the cuff on that. So it was a rumor that I'd heard a little while ago. I didn't verify it, so I don't know that's a fact. So if somebody's involved with the Joe Kent campaign, or you know Joe Kent personally, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe that that's what's happened. He had a really interesting background. Has a really interesting background in his military background is really interesting. So I imagine that that's probably where he would be. Are there any good petitions in the works for the next voting cycle? I'm assuming you mean cycle. And Nellie, I'm assuming you mean like initiatives. So not so much petitions, but initiatives. And there may be. The real question on that, of course, is going to be what Brian Haywood does with Let's Go Washington. You've seen me interview him many times on my show before. I'm a big fan, and I have been from the beginning. I'm pretty sure that they're going to be looking at, with the way that Bob Ferguson has deceptively structured the titling process to confuse the voters in Washington state, and with the deficiencies that still exist in our voting rolls that we need a lot of cleanup, there's probably a narrow set of things that they would run initiatives on today, and they're looking at probably some of those right now. I've heard they are. I just don't know what they would be. Jason, you got a question here about the permit to purchase passed in 2023 but didn't require an actual permit, and they want to pass something that requires a physical permit card. Yeah, I think they got some of that stuff, right, that they're going to be pushing through. I think that's probably true. The bigger question, I can't tell you how significant it is this week with this federal rollout from the Trump administration. I mean, if anybody remembers, when Trump took office in 2016, it was I don't know about you, but I did not think Trump was going to win, and I was demoralized. I had been on the Ted Cruz campaign before Trump ever actually announced that he was running for office. So way back in the beginning, I was on the Ted Cruz campaign, and I stuck it out. I was involved. I helped. I did everything I could, and then Ted Cruz dropped out, and I voted for Trump in 2016. No doubt about it. Happy to vote for him, but I did not think he was going to be able to pull it off. And when I woke up the next morning and realized he won, it was the funniest. I was laughing so hard. Now, I was focused on the Thurston County Commissioner races at the time, which also flipped Thurston County. We took out some of the Democrats, not because of Trump. Trump got 39% of the vote that year in Thurston County, but we flipped the Democrats out of the county commission. It was a big deal. I had been directly focused on that and got sued about 3 times as a direct result of those efforts. So I was caught up in that drama at the time, but I was paying attention a little bit to the federal process of the Trump administration coming in, and he was clearly unprepared, probably because of trusting a lot of people that were not honest or not capable or not competent. He really didn't have a program coming in. The contrast between 2016 and 2024 it's night and day. It doesn't address it adequately. I mean, this was a highly effective team that hit the ground running, changing the website within minutes, having those executive orders already prepped and ready to go, logically laid out with legal arguments and explanations for them, a wide spectrum, sometimes quite wonkish, but still retaining the consistency with the political promises that he did make ahead of time, and doing a ton of stuff that he said he was going to do right away. We so often, for a long time, my whole life, we've seen politicians come in, make lots of promises, and they fail to deliver. I do believe most of the time they do intend to deliver on those promises if they're conservative, but they get caught up in the program where, you sit back and you figure out the ropes, just like Trump did in the beginning when he first got in there. They did that to him in 2016. Every politician, every conservative that I know that's ever been elected to office, they always do the same thing to him. They come in and they say, okay, but you made a lot of promises. Those are hard to keep. You can get there eventually, but you need to understand how the system works. And then what they do is they co-opt you. They try to corrupt you. They try to distract you. They try to point you in different directions, and most people fall for that. And Trump got caught up in a lot of that drama the first time. That's not happening now. You got a much more experienced crew coming in there, recognizing the dangers and the minefields that exist within the bureaucracy, with the and this is where the left did itself no favors. They're absurd and ridiculous attacks on Trump when he was out of office and his allies and stuff has simply done nothing but strengthen and harden the resolve of a much larger cadre of people coming in that are experienced and knowledgeable. They've done their homework. They've done their research. They had 4 years of experience of doing it wrong. They're coming back in way more prepared and able to hit the ground running. And you got this unusual demonstration of different world visions. Newsom, up until a month ago, was really the leading charge for the Democrats as their next great hope after Trump's gone, because Trump's only going to be able to serve 4 years. The presidential race starts 4 years in advance. So it's already starting. And now suddenly Newsom just self-immolates along with L.A. down there, and a stunning self-destructive series of incompetence. Just it's on display for the whole world to see. I mean, what sane person, and assuming you can still be sane and be on the left side of the political spectrum, but one sane person is really going to be looking at that thinking, oh, Newsom's a great choice for America. Forget it. Nobody's going to think that. He can't manage a state in any level of competency, sociopathic sort of tendencies, that weird laugh that he had with the crumbling, burning L.A. behind him while he's talking about his friends that are speculators coming in and buying out these distressed family properties. I mean, it's just bizarre. And so I don't know that So the people who would be leading this opposition, like a lot of them are falling apart. The Massachusetts thing with all the billions of dollars they have to feed back, California, or not California, but Denver, Colorado, and Illinois, where they're going to be doing these big raids to remove the illegals, and the bizarre local elected officials trying to say they want to keep the violent criminals in their communities and not deport them. These aren't the things that tend to motivate a base to get behind you. Now, the left will reorganize. There's no such thing as permanence in the political process. So they will regroup. There will be infighting in the left for a while, but they'll eventually knife everybody in the back that they need to and come around to some kind of central plan that they will come forward and launch as some kind of an opposition to the Trump campaign, certainly by the 2026 election, which is why I have argued many times that the highest priority that the Trump administration, one of their highest priorities among a plethora of other priorities, but one of them needs to be reform the election process. They just have to do it. I've done videos on this already months ago, but and I'll do it again. And because of the work I've done with the Washington Photo Research Project, I do know exactly what I'm talking about. Those 6 policies, if you were to implement those in Washington State, they would significantly impact and restore some level of confidence in the creaking, weird voter registration system that we have today, especially in Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, Arizona, Michigan, Illinois, Arizona, and Nevada, and probably Pennsylvania. And it wouldn't surprise me if it had some impact out in the Northeast states as well. Those changes would really, really, and frankly, some of the red states that don't realize how problematic some of their voting systems have become there too. Just because you win as a Republican, it doesn't mean your system's not corrupted. There's problems there too. And if you could clean up that voting system and standardize it so you don't have the mail-in voting, the multi-month counting world, the secret stash of ballots concealed and nobody knows where it came from in the back, the election worker's trunk, the ballot harvesting, all the other scams that go on out there, changing that would be a pretty big deal. So anyway, there's some pretty amazing things that are going on. We're living in very unusual times. But if we could get that kind of a change through, I do think it would be a big deal. And I think it would make a big difference in the country. So those are my thoughts. Something else I totally forgot to mention earlier. I am going to be at the Roanoke Conference. I'm on the board of the Roanoke Conference. That's coming up this weekend. If you are going to Ocean Shores at the Roanoke Conference as well, I believe they've sold out already. But you and 600 some odd of your friends from around Washington State who would view themselves as Republican or conservatives or at least center curious, center-right curious, they can all be there. Lots of elected officials in Washington State. Lots of people who are on the inside in Olympia. good panel presentations, but I do believe the biggest value in Roanoke is usually the networking opportunities that you have with other people, like-minded people from all around the state who are there at the same time. So I am looking forward to seeing you. If you're going to be out in Ocean Shores, please make a point coming up to me, letting me know that you watch my live streams, that you subscribe to my channel or you don't, or whatever it is that you hate or like about the work that I'm doing. I'm always interested in that. Let me know, especially if you want to help me come out in your community and do activism training for how to do the Public Records Act, how to use it better, how to organize your local groups to be more effective at exposing corruption and incompetence in local government, how to use the Public Disclosure Commission to file complaints against your probably endless series of politicians who are breaking those laws, how to use the ethics laws the same way, how to set up video teams out there to hopefully document things that are going on in your communities. There's a lot of different things I can help you train, maybe get you focused in a little bit better, more organized way. You don't have to make the same mistakes I've made or the mistakes I've seen made hundreds of times by other people around the state. And if I can help you avoid those and be a little bit more efficient, it's probably time well spent, and it doesn't cost a lot, but I'm here to help you do this. And if you see me at Ocean Shores and that's what you want, please come up, talk to me, let me get your contact information. I'll follow up with you there. Let's see. I'm going to try to get this. Thunderstriker, see you there. Now, you mentioned something about an event coming up in Arizona in February. I'm always interested in coming, but I am not going out of state unless somebody's paying me, to be honest with you. So in state, I do a lot of stuff for good of the order, and I'm helping my fellow activists, but I will not go out of state unless somebody is at least paying me a little bit, cover my costs to go and do something like that. I am kind of a homebody at the end of the day when it comes to that stuff, as best I can be, as best as somebody can be when you put 40,000 miles in your car, mostly driving around the state of Washington. Yeah, this is a good point. Trump's first term was learning to not get beat down. Yeah, he's back with his game face on and kicking ass. And really, it is about Trump, because I think he's a unique individual in a unique time, and it's amazing what he's been able to achieve and how he's done it. But it's also about building a group of people that no matter how great you think you are, you're not going to be capable of pulling off anything at this scale unless you've done an excellent job surrounding yourself with a lot of other people who bring a substantial skill set in their own way, and you can't micromanage them. They really do genuinely have to agree with your vision and essentially march forward in, doesn't have to be lockstep, but as close to lockstep as you can have. And what's amazing is how many people that he's been able to bring in that are doing that right now. So that's one of the things I suspect that has really, really made this something that we've never seen in our country before, not like this. So it's an amazing opportunity for freedom and liberty in a desperate time. I still believe that math is real, and the concerns I have over the deficit and the debt and the value of the dollar and the potential for bad actors to monkey wrench our country into a much worse situation, I think that exists out there. I think to deny it is to live in delusion of some kind. So we don't want to do that. I did lay out a couple things in one of my videos. I'll give it a little bit of a preview since before it comes out. And it will be just more addressing some of the issues I think that we face in our state and things that we could do right now. Now, I still say, I did a video a little while ago on how to leave public comment. It's easier now than it's ever been in our state history. We should be flooding the zone with all kinds of comments, especially in opposition to the crazy stuff, and in support of the handful of good things that are happening. And so I would definitely encourage you to be engaged in that. I would also encourage you to follow up and either reach out in every way you can to the Trump administration and Homeland Security in particular about making public their visa lists, the legal visa lists. These are people who are here legally, H-1B, F-1, whatever the visas are that we have in America. And the value of this is that these people are not getting deported. There's nothing wrong with them being here. Most of them are highly value added, not all of them, but most of them, and they're making an impact in our communities. What's useful about that list and why we want to make it public, why I tried to make it public and get a hold of it back in the first first Trump administration, and they didn't do it. Why I'd want to get it now is to expose how many of them are actually on the voter rolls, and the answer is almost all of them. And the reason why that's useful is it's a helpful evidence to demonstrate why we need to do some of those election reforms. Homeland Security controls those lists and has complete and total control of whether they are public or not. And so we'd like to make those public. That's a short-term thing. Second thing that we really want to do is push hard to get the U.S. attorneys aggressively. It looks like Pam Bondi's probably going to be the DOJ, head of the Department of Justice as our Attorney General for the federal government. I realize that she's been weak, and I've been told on the Second Amendment when she was in Florida, and she's been supposedly educated on that subject, but she does appear to be in lockstep with the overall Trump agenda that's going on, and part of that is going to be and should be exposing the corruption and public integrity issues that in the state of Washington and probably Oregon and California as well, nobody's investigating this stuff, and nobody has. It's been prevented, I think, for decades now, and it would be a tremendous opportunity for us to clean house and just get to the bottom of a lot of corruption that's probably been covered up because of a lack of either enforcement or willingness to prosecute some of the public integrity cases that I think exist all over the place out here. That'd be a big difference, and it would really, really change things. Quick thing, I'll jump back into the comments here. A Thunderstriker, what day and time is the event happening in Ocean Shores? Starts Friday, starts at 4, I think, on Friday, and it goes all day It goes all day Friday night, all day Saturday. Lots of events. Go to the Roanoke Conference. You can look that up online. They have an agenda there, and it also goes into part of Sunday. I think it's over by about noon on Sunday. However, if you don't have a ticket yet, you probably aren't going to be able to get in because I do believe it's sold out. I could be wrong. Maybe there's still some more tickets, but all I know is I'm stuffing, it's a volunteer board to be on, but I'm stuffing envelopes and the packets for the conference tomorrow night, actually. I'm also doing some interviews tomorrow with some school board members who I think have been doing good work around the state. I tried to interview them a couple weeks ago, and just technical problems caused wasted a day, essentially. So I'm lucky that I'm able to get an opportunity to interview them again tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to doing as well. With that, I know that you guys have other questions, but I'm going to probably just close here this video with just a quick summary of things that you can do to make a difference. Please do contact me if you can organize 20 or more activists in your community that you want to start focusing on exposing government corruption or start doing something to make a difference where you live. I'm happy to help you kind of get launched and get organized to do that. I can walk you through a lot of the mistakes to avoid and a lot of the success paths that are more likely to produce the results you want. And I enjoy doing this. I believe in doing this. I think it makes a big difference all over Washington State. I know I'm already doing it in a number of places, but it's not about just going and taking a training program because I'm putting on some kind of training class. It's really about going there with the mentality that I'm going to come back and change my community or at least have a positive impact on it. And I'm going to learn how to work well with others. I'm going to learn how to work in small teams. We're going to learn how to focus on cities or counties or school districts or something that needs better exposure and change in order to make it a better place. So I'm eager to work with people like you. If you're interested and you think that's you, I'm here to help you. And there's a lot going on in the state. And again, for those of you who haven't seen it, please look at the video the music video, my first attempt at country. I'm curious to see what people think. That is not me singing. That is my computer singing. But I do want you to tell me what you think about it. I think it's a funny song. I'm sure Bob Ferguson will hate it. And it'll be the first. Well, it's not the first one. I've done parody videos before, but this will be my first one that I've done in a little while. And it's been over a year, I think, since I did the last one. So, but I think I'm going to try to do this more often moving forward. I'm sure Ferguson really loves it, and you will too. So get a chance, take a look at it, share it far and wide. Give me your feedback on this or any other thing I might be working on. And if you have any other suggestions, I had a great story about a video. I was going to try to do a video today about a judge out of Kitsap County that just got recently removed from her position. It's a great story, a fiasco story that the wokesters brought to us. They seem to hand us these stories on a silver platter all the time. I'm probably going to end up doing an article about it because I'm not going to be able to get some more video work done until after the Roanoke Conference. So I've got a couple of videos in the pipeline coming out. Let me know what you think about those. Check out my Convention of States article at the We the Govern. And until then, hopefully I'll see you at Roanoke. If I don't see you there, we'll see you next Tuesday. I believe that I'm on track to do the live stream then. It's a good day. It's been a Liberation Day yesterday, but now really the hard work begins, and there's a lot of it to do, particularly when you're behind enemy lines like we are in Washington State. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I'm looking forward to just seeing you out there in the field. Come on up to me if you see me out in public. And let me know what you think about my show, and share it with others, and I will see you next time. So thank you guys so much.